right, we are on.
Okay.
So,
happy Monday.
happy Monday to us.
to you, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's weird because I like recording on Mondays, but at the same time, I don't like it because I have to separate my brain from work mode.
Yeah.
And then get into podcasting mode. And
some
days it's easier than others.
Well, and it's like your first day back to work after the weekend. So you're already like having to like get into that mode and then switch back. I do love our Monday recordings though, because I feel like it gives us time to really process the whole episode.
Yes.
Watch it a couple times if we have the time and are able.
Yeah.
And watch both fragments and like have
you know what?
theories
I didn't
and
watch the fragments.
You didn't? Ashley, you have to watch them. I have so much to say when this episode is over.
And you really can.
Okay.
It wasn't me. It was just I had a busy weekend.
Yeah.
And taking the time to watch the episode took up all of my extra time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I understand that.
So I just didn't even get to it.
No. Okay. Well, let me just say this. I mean, I'll talk about it more when we finish this episode, but these two were by far the most perfect fragments they have ever released. Like, they were polar opposite. One is total comedy and the other one is all drama. And while I do think that they probably spoiled the final scene in the second one.
They need to stop doing that.
I know. I'm not even mad about it though, because the fragments are so good. Like, they're so good. The editing and like all of that. I'm super impressed. So, and I don't know that I've been this excited about a future episode since the show started and we were like excited for episode 1. Like, so anyways, but we'll dig into more of that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So I do. Okay. So I have a little bit of housekeeping. I need, based on messages I got on the social medias this week, I need to clarify what I meant by bunny boiling last week when I mentioned that.
People must never have heard that term before.
So
it's probably a very American.
A few people have.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. They
were like, oh, you've clearly never seen this movie. You guys, I did not just pull that phrase out of my head. I'm not that like depraved. It is because last week when Ashley and I were talking about how if we ever got the chance to interview Karem, like we promised not to ask bunny boiling questions, like really personal, invasive. There's a movie
like stalkers.
Yes, like stalkers, because there's a movie called Fatal Attraction, you guys. And it's a reference to that because the woman in there basically is stalking her ex, I guess, but she was having an affair with him. He's married, but then she becomes obsessed with him when it ends and she winds up.
Yeah, she's a psychopath.
Yes. And she boils his rabbit. So that's
that's not funny.
It's not. But so many people were like, Kristen, that was really intense.
Oh my God.
I was like, it was a reference to a movie.
It's a pop culture reference, you guys. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. I promise you,
hilarious.
I have never thought about boiling a bunny before. I promise. So, oh my gosh. So I just had to clarify that. But let me tell you, so when I was getting these messages, I was cracking up and I was telling Jason about it. And I was like, I said, oh my gosh. Okay, so I have to tell you. So I gave him a little bit of background. So we were talking about if we ever in a million years got the opportunity to interview Karem, how we wouldn't, ask all these invasive paparazzi questions.
Yeah.
That we would ask cool and interesting questions. We wouldn't be bunny boilers about it. And so I'm explaining it to him and he starts laughing and he's like, oh, please. He's like, I know you and Ashley. He's like, you'll be like, oh, sir, what's your inseam? Here, let me measure it for you.
Jason, you need to tell him that I am offended. I am personally offended by the implication that we would sexually harass.
Oh my gosh. I was like, who are you? It's like, I would never do that.
Oh my gosh.
I might joke about it, but I would never actually do that.
There's no, neither of us would.
No.
Neither of us would.
We'd be lucky if we could even speak in his presence, much less say something outrageous like that. But
oh my gosh.
that was just the last thing in the world I expected him to say. And I was like, and this was like on Wednesday, and I was like, I have to tell Ashley about this. So I waited 5 days to tell you.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Because I was like, I have to tell her about this for the very first time.
On the podcast?
Uh-huh. So.
A live recording?
Uh-huh. So listen,
oh, man.
I hope that clarifies what I meant by boiling a bunny. I'll try to use more international pop references next time. I don't know, but
my gosh.
I was just like, oh my gosh, how many people are seriously concerned about me saying this that haven't even like messaged me?
That's
so I was like,
funny.
I was like, I have to clarify what I meant by this.
That's hilarious.
Uh-huh. So, anyways, that was my big housekeeping thing.
Okay.
My second thing is more has to do with the show. But somebody messaged our Twitter account, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to this because I like what it says. I know we sort of gave up on trying to figure out what the actual flowers are inside of the glass encasement.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I'm going to go back to my hydrangea theory.
Okay.
Even though the ones in the glass case have these little antenna things, I'm going to go with they just sort of look different because they're fake flowers that were probably made for the scene. So they're not going to look exact because this, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this. I am so sorry. I keep forgetting to screenshot and include the person's handle in it who messages us so I can give them credit. But they messaged and basically said like, did you see this? And it is, where we go? Okay, so it's Ayşe's original tweet from a while ago when she had posted about hydrangeas when she was like posting flowers of the day long before Sensual Kapımı even started.
I think we even brought it up during that episode.
Yes, so I'll read it again really quick. And it's, legend has it that the Japanese emperor sends blue hydrangeas to apologize to the woman he has abandoned because of his work and ambitions. Hydrangea, which changes color according to the acidity of the soil, represents our changeable mood. Okay, so these ones in this case would be blue hydrangeas because they are blue flowers inside the little glass. And then this person sent me a tweet that someone had written in Portuguese, so I translated it. And it says, this is their take on it. And it says, the meaning of this flower refers to the blame for abandonment. Because every time Serkan looks at or picks up this flower in an episode, it only seems to appear in situations in which he is distant from Eda and feels guilty. So, I mean, it fits. So, I think I'm going to change my official stance to these are hydrangeas. They just are fake, so they don't quite look like hydrangeas. Because that means, like, he is like, okay, but other than now, like when he was staring at them before, it was during like 11, I think, was one of the last times because remember he was like at home. Oh no, it was the Globe. It wasn't 11. During the time that he was accusing her of helping Khan.
Oh, right.
And like she was like noped on out and was like, fine, you'll never see me again. And he had like shoved them behind his computer when he was working.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
And that would make sense. Like he abandoned her and it had everything to do with work because he thought she was professionally like screwing him over basically.
Right.
And was missing her and feeling guilty for the way he acted about it. And then this last week, he broke up with her for fake reasons that have to do with work and ambition. And he was like staring at them before he hid them away again. So I think it has merit. So, you know, hopefully one day Ayşe will actually confirm or clarify this. But until then, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So thank you. Thank you, Twitter, for sending me that. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I love it. So, anyhow, I think that was pretty much it for me. So I'm guessing since you didn't see the fragments, you also didn't see that a little Karem and Hyundai interview was recorded today. It's like a paparazzi interview, and it was really cringy because, of course, they were asking them like,
Are you in love with each other? Are you dating?
Uh-huh. And I love it though because when they first started bringing that up, Karem actually looked at them and was like, "Are you seriously asking me this directly right now?" And I was like, "Good for him."
Yeah.
Like, again, we promised we would never ask anything like that or imply, because first of all, what in the world tells people they're going to get a different answer than the answer they always give every time they're asked this tired question over and over and over again? Anyways, I was just here for it because it seemed like they got a little sassier and snarkier with their responses. And I'm like, good, as it should be.
Yeah.
They even were like, well, how come you guys are leaving here together? They were leaving MF Yapım, the studios. Why do you think they were leaving at the same time, you dummies? They worked together and they probably finished filming at the same time. Like,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because it just happened this morning. And I was like, good grief, we would have asked way better questions that were actually interesting and would have taught us something. But, you know. Anyways.
Not everybody can be us, Kristen.
I guess not.
All right. I don't have anything.
Okay.
So we can get right into it.
Okay. Sounds good.
So we start back up and Eda, my note is Eda is wrecked.
I said, really is.
But really she's fine. Mm-hmm. Just a little brain foggy. And did you notice that the doctor in the scene is the investigator from Bayanlish? He's like the private investigator.
Oh, he is?
Sardar hires.
Oh my gosh, I totally did not realize that. The guy who was going and looking for Mrs. Wrong.
Uh-huh. Totally the same guy. Oh, there's Zuzu. Totally the same guy. So anyway, we essentially find out that she still thinks that the two of them are together because she wakes up and she's all happy to see him and she calls him Ashkam. and Serkan, he can't deal.
Well, he's confused and like, Ashkam, like.
Confused and delighted.
He is. He
clearly is happy.
Absolutely delighted. But do you notice too, he doesn't really take advantage of it. Like, oh, let me just be all over you and da-da-da. Like, she's the one that like initiates and grabs his hand. She's the one, like, he's not just like, oh, she thinks we're together. Well, I'm going to just like revel in this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course not, because he's a good, respectful man.
Yes.
But you can tell by the look on his face that he doesn't hate that she's being sweet to him in this situation. So, and I love that the fact that she's acting that way. He's like, no, doctor, you need to take her to the hospital.
Something's wrong. She hates me.
She's not okay. Do you understand?
Oh.
So the doctor's like, no, she's fine. She's just a little concussed. Just take her somewhere close, but don't take her on long car rides, and she's not allowed to go to sleep. So
yeah, she can't sleep and she can't wiggle around too much because the jolting will hurt her brain. So
right,
but she's fine. She's fine.
Yeah, yeah, no big deal.
No shaking, but she's fine.
only minorly concussed.
Yeah,
not majorly. So he ends up texting Jaren because they're all still worried about her. They're all still looking for her. And so Jaren, Engin, and Peril are all together. And they're like, okay, what the heck is going on? And then Jaren gets the text message and she's just very confused. They're all very confused because they're broken up. I did like the little dog cameo right then, though. Did you notice that?
Yeah, somebody in the group even posted it and was like, did you guys notice there's a dog that just like walks right on up to Jaren in this scene?
Yeah.
Oh.
So Eda is still being all sweet and he's like, I'm going to remind you about this later.
I love that. Because she basically is like, don't ever leave me, like kind of a thing like, I know you're worried, but it'll be fine, but just don't leave me here. And like, yeah, I love it.
So funny. So then he calls Engin and he kind of explains the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he's going to take her to the summer house because it's nice and close. She can't go on a long car ride. And then everybody else decides that they're just going to head home because she's safe.
Right.
They're dealt with, even though they're all still very confused.
Yeah. Well, and do you notice how Engin's like, well, so what's going to happen? And he's like, I don't know. I'll take her. She'll eventually remember. She'll hate me and then she'll attack me. Like,
yeah.
To be expected. She'll start attacking me.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I know. So, after that, I love it though, because they're still like, when he gets off the phone, she like strokes his face and is like, you're so pale with worry. I know how you get. Like, but I'm okay. I promise. Like,
his face when she's doing the little face rubs.
I know.
Oh my gosh. I was like, this is priceless.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so, we have Alptekin, right?
Yes, we have
switch over.
Yeah, he's basically stressed out. Idon's freaking out because Serkan didn't come home last night, and so she's like, he must have already moved. And Seifi's like, I don't think he moved. He just didn't come home last night. Like,
yeah.
Even Seifi points out to her, like, besides, you're not actually losing him. He's just moving. Like, he's an adult and he can do that.
Yeah.
And Idon's like not having it though. She basically tells Alptekin he needs to sort it out with Serkan. And he's like, okay, I'll figure something out.
Yeah.
So
should we? That.
Yeah. And basically, because we have a couple more scenes like that where Idon like kind of pushes him on it. Like, are you fixing this? Are you this? Are you that? And it eventually leads to a game night, which we'll get to when we get to. But that's the crux of these scenes.
Yes. No, that's a nice, easy summary of it.
Yeah.
So we get more sweetness in the car.
Oh my gosh. I love this.
I love it.
Because she's like, let's make popcorn and watch a rom-com. And she's like, all this stuff. And he's like, okay. Like, he's just biding his time because he knows it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And then she kind of snuggles on up to him and lays her head on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And asks him a question.
Yeah. So she's like, what are you thinking about? And he says, I would give anything for this moment to last forever.
Oh.
And then she calls him a romantic robot.
I know. Oh. And then yes, I love it.
And then she's like, okay, I'm going to turn on the radio. This song is dedicated to you. And then time has run out for Serkan's little dream world in which everything is actually okay. And Ada is not pissed off at him.
Well, of course. Okay, so it's the Senchal Kapımı song that Başak sings. And he's like, why is this song always on?
Yes. And we figure out that he has a right to be upset that this song is always on. Because it jogs her freaking memory.
Uh-huh.
And suddenly she remembers and you see the realization dawn. And she has a little flashback. And then she looks at him and she's like, Serkan Bolak, get me out of this car right now.
Okay, when he says...
oh my gosh.
Ve hoş geldin Eda Yıldız. I died laughing.
Yep.
When I was live watching, I actually tweeted it out like in that like SpongeBob lettering where it's like every other letter is capital and little because like that's exactly how he said it. Like it was.
Oh man, it's so sarcastic and he's like, here it is. Super awesome, amazing. This is the best day of my life. She's back and she's attacking me exactly like I anticipated. Oh my gosh. It was beautiful. And his face when he says that is too perfect. Oh yeah, man.
I agree. But basically he winds up telling her, not stopping the car. You're not getting out. We're almost to the summer house. You need to be close to a hospital and you can't travel that far. So basically deal with it.
Yeah. Yep.
So then and when she's like, stop the car, you opportunist. Now listen, I thought that was funny. But also when the fragment for this came out, there were people like freaking out that like he was going to take advantage because of like in the now listen, in the fragment, because it shows them like in bed and snuggling and all that stuff, which a bunch of us were like, those are flashbacks for sure. But they weren't made to appear that way in the fragment.
Guys.
But I was like, listen, if you even remotely know Kerem's character at all.
If you even remotely know Turk Dizi, you know not to trust fragments.
Yes, that. And if for whatever reason, I don't see Ayşe ever writing that, but let's just say it was the storyline, I wholeheartedly believe Kerem would be like, I'm not doing that as my character. I'm not taking advantage of a woman who is mentally foggy.
Who just had a head injury.
And use that to my advantage to sleep with her when she thinks we're together and we're actually not. So,
oh my gosh.
Anyways.
I can't. Oh my gosh. Guys, don't ever trust the fragmen.
Ever.
They are purposefully misleading.
Yes, they are.
That's why I said that one time that I wasn't going to watch fragments anymore.
Oh, hey, you accidentally stood by that this weekend, so
I know I have a lot of integrity.
So, anyway, sorry. So she tells him he's an opportunist to stop the car. He ignores her and keeps driving.
Yes. So we have a funny little moment where Engin and Pırıl and Layla and Erdem are all getting ready to leave. And Erdem and Layla see a little moment between Pırıl and Engin. And the look that they give each other is, I made a gif out of it, and it's my favorite thing ever. It's so totally the friends looking at each other like,
they
look
both
at this.
Uh-huh. It totally is.
Oh, it's so good. But anyway, they deny it. And Pırıl's like, we're like brother and sister. And Engin's like, brother and sister, are you kidding me? So that was just a funny little moment.
And it's funny because it's like, neither Layla or Erdem believe you, and they know you're full of it. So like, why are you even denying it at this point?
Exactly.
But do you notice too, Layla's like, you threw me right under the bus, or Erdem maybe. One of them to the other after Pırıl and Engin leave is like, what's wrong with you?
It was Erdem because Layla breaks so easily.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, you immediately threw me under the bus, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of bicker. And then do you notice they have a little EdSer moment where
where they last name each other.
They're like,
and they say, I hate you.
The feeling is mutual.
Yes. I loved it. They had some really good moments together this episode.
Yeah, I agree. So Ed and Serkan arrive at the summer house, and I wrote, let the pettiness begin. Because he gets out of the car, he comes around to open her door for her. What a gentleman. And she yanks it back shut. And he's like, oh, great, here we go. And she rolls down the window like, can I help you? And they kind of bicker back and forth. And she's like, I would have rather stayed in that pit. And he's like, well, let me remind you, I rescued you from that pit. You're welcome. Yeah. Like,
and then he even uses her aunt. He's like, oh, great. Well, we'll just call your aunt and she'll be really worried and she'll come right on over. And it is like, fine.
Yeah. So
she just looks so mad.
Eventually she does get out of the car and they begrudgingly walk into the house together. And as they're walking in, we get this flood of memories. And, like we get, I think one of the first ones is like a morning after shot where she's in the kitchen and she's eating an apple. And then he joins her and she you can tell it's cutesy because she's offering him a bite, and we all know how he is about eating off of food that other people have bit off of.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this cute little not bickering, but her trying to get him to do it. He's laughing. It's very, very sweet. So there's a lot because in the opening sequence, she's eating an apple. And I didn't know that I didn't really think much about that. But why is she eating an apple in the opening sequence? And then why does that mean something now that she's eating an apple? People were floating theories around on Twitter, and there's so much out there. So it's hard to really narrow down if this was anything or if it really was just her eating a piece of fruit. And it just...
So in the flashback you're talking about, right?
In the flashback, yeah, she's eating the apple. But it made me realize in the opening credits, Edda's character is taking a bite of an apple.
That's right.
And why?
Okay.
So now, I mean...
Look, I was so distracted by the fact that she's wearing one of his shirts and that they clearly had a night together. I was like, excuse me, what is happening? I know. We get these, like, cute bed snuggling scenes where they were sleeping together and she gets up and he's like, no, girl, come back.
Come back? I know. I know. So, okay. So, I think, because here's what the ancient Greeks have to say about apples.
Okay.
It's a symbol of love and sexual desire. So I don't know if that was just yet another hint to us that they clearly did the deed. Like here, we can't show you, but let us try to explain it to you in every way possible.
I mean, it was like shovels of innuendo in these flashbacks. I was like, I don't think we can leave. I don't think anything has been left to wondering.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right. So it's a symbol associated with the Greek goddess Aphrodite and who's the goddess of love. It's believed that if a gentleman threw or tossed an apple to a maiden, he was confessing his love to her. If she in turn caught the apple, or at least attempted to, she was reciprocating. The apple is also considered to bring... Okay, here's where people started freaking out because the first fragment... Clearly,
because Edda is pregnant.
Yeah, because people think Edda's pregnant.
Oh my gosh!
Or it's implying that people think she's pregnant.
Right.
Which, listen, you guys, she literally just had a night of drinking and being hungover. I think if she was pregnant, I don't think the writers would have her get drunk on karaoke night. Like even if she's not in the know yet, I don't think they would have. I just don't think they would write that in the script. So she's not pregnant.
I did think there was a tweet that I thought was really funny because they show that little clip of the flashback where he like grabs her and pulls her back to bed and then it has the SpongeBob a few moments later and then it's like her being pregnant.
Well, yeah,
so like I'll take all the jokes about it. Absolutely.
Oh, completely. I even wrote after that fragment came out, I was like, listen, not at Serkan thinking that his little magical robot swimmers are so powerful that they would not only get her pregnant that quickly, or not that they couldn't get her pregnant, but that they would know this quickly. It's literally only been a few days.
Yeah.
She would, I don't even think a week has passed, so I don't even think she would know. She has not even time to skip a period.
I mean, we do live in the world of 6-minute dryers.
Exactly.
So maybe.
So we get
the gestation period of a Turkish Dizi woman is a lot shorter.
People were making side by side like GIFs and stuff of Edda and Serkan, and then Edward and Bella from Twilight because like her pregnancy goes super fast in that story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And all the Boss Baby
my
gifs
gosh.
and memes, they're just killing me. It's so funny.
So
the freaking
good.
fandom, man.
Seriously. So because sorry. We got off way on that tangent, but that's okay. It's all relevant.
True.
So the apple's considered to bring abundance and fertility, which is what then got people going crazy over it with the fragment and all of that. So I think it's more about its symbolism for love and sexual desire, though. I think it was just kind of tied into that. For the sake of like really confirming things for us. I mean, it still does beg the question why she's eating one in the opening sequence. I've never ever paid attention to that before.
Yeah.
Like seems kind of pointed that she's eating an apple because it has nothing to do with the show.
Right. And we haven't seen her eating an apple yet in the entire series.
No. So anyhow. So there you go. So there's my shortened, there's so much stuff out there and I was like, I can't possibly talk about all of this, but the crux of it comes down to love and sexual desire. So
Okay. Yeah, so we get a whole lot of cuteness. We get a whole lot of eating together and in the room and cuddling and waking up together and all this kind of stuff. So
happy sigh in Turkish.
Uh-huh.
I just literally was like, I'm total mush for this, especially those bedroom flashbacks because they're just so sweet. Like, so I love them, even though it makes reality a little even more sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because in that bedroom one, when he walks her into the room where they clearly stayed, but only she'll be in there now. You know, he gives her a pair of sweats and stuff to change into and stares at the bed as he has this flashback. So it's super clear even to her what he's remembering. You know, we've got forehead kissing and nose nuzzling and face stroking and snuggly goodness. And then we pop back into reality and she's like, can you get out?
Well, and I did like this as a movement of the story too, because of the fact that she sees him kind of spacing out as he's looking at the bed, and she can tell that he's affected. And then after this whole situation, after what he said in the car, she's thinking, and then when she calls Jaren and Fifi, she is kind of like, she explains the whole situation, and she's like, I can't remember why Serkan broke up with me, but he said this in the car, and I just don't think that the reason we broke up is the reason that he originally told me. There's got to be something going on.
Yes, girl. Seriously. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, we knew you were no dummy.
Right.
And even though the girls are trying to kind of logically explain it away, I love that she's like fixated on this. Like, no, this means something. Like,
she knows that something is up.
Yep.
So I really liked those little portions. And even her telling him, you don't have to do this. You didn't have to take care of me. Why are you doing this? Why would you take me to your house? Why don't you call somebody else?
Yep.
And he gives the excuse that he would do it for any employee of his. But frankly, we know that's not true. He would make sure they were taken care of, but not personally at his summer home.
Yeah. Did Layla recover from her surgery at your house, Serkan?
Exactly.
No. You made sure she was taken care of and had the best doctors and checked on her, but you were not like being her personal nurse. So
yeah, you weren't by her bedside the entire time.
So yes. Then we get Grandpa Cardigan Serkan, who I am here for. I know in his Instagram live, he was like, or story, he was like, I look like an 85-year-old, but I was like, listen, you make it work. So more cardigans, please.
Yeah.
Ed doesn't sweats. And he's just basically trying to keep her awake. He offers to turn on the TV. And then, like you said, Ada starts questioning why he's even doing this. He gives that, manufactured answer. And, she's not really buying it, but she's like, okay, bickering a little bit back and forth. She's like, don't look at me. Don't watch me. And he's like,
Makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. He's like, listen, I have to make sure you don't fall asleep. She's like, I'm not going to fall asleep. So just don't look at me. And he's like, well, say what you want. I'm still going to watch you.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm making a snack. I'm hungry. So she goes into the kitchen and works on that. Efe's calling. I didn't realize in the live watch that, I saw this later. I was like, oh, Serkan's the one that sees that it's Efe calling and brings her phone.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah. And so he hands her the phone. She answers it. And of course, he's like rolling his eyes the whole time at their conversation because, of course, Efe's like, are you okay? Do you want me to come get you? Blah, blah, blah. She fends him off. She's like, no, it's fine. I'll be, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm just recovering here, yada, yada. And, Serkan is kind of sassy regarding Efe, because he's like, oh, I see you guys are getting along just peachy and all this stuff. And she's like, yeah, what's it to you? And he's like, well, he's not going to be in the holding very long. So basically, like, you don't really need to be that close to him. He's jealous. And as we know, he's also very wary of him. So
yes.
But later in the evening, she starts falling asleep. He wakes her up and she's like, don't touch me.
It's so funny when he wakes her up and the look on her face. I was like, wow, it does me when I'm woken up before I am planning to wake up.
Same, big time. I am not a morning person, you guys. It's terrible. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm kind of snappy and grumpy the first probably 15 minutes I'm up. while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew. So anyways, she still winds up falling back asleep. So he's like, okay, listen, you need to stay awake. Why don't we talk?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, she kind of is like, no. And then initially he's like, okay, fine. You know what? Yeah, let's talk. And he's like, okay, good. Like, because he's just wanting to help keep her awake. But
yeah,
she's
well,
like,
she finally says that they'll talk after he irritates her and plays super loud music and wakes her up. And she's like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you?
yes, yes.
But he successfully woke her up. So she's like, fine, let's talk.
Mm-hmm. But she has nothing to say. So she's like, you're going to do all the talking.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, what do you want to talk about? And then there's kind of a few moments of just a little bit of staring because the mood changes.
Yeah.
And she gets very vulnerable and basically says, well, first, I want you to tell me about a day that you hurt someone terribly. Then a day that was really upsetting to you. And then a day you remember being the happiest. And she's saying all this and she's struggling to get it out. She's got tears like welled up in her eyes.
Yeah.
And the same thing starts to happen to him as he's listening to her say this.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically chokes out, I don't think we should talk about anything personal.
Yeah.
And then her response.
Yikes.
And she's like, that's what I thought. Because there's nothing personal left between us.
Ugh.
And then it's like just super, it's like the tears actually start rolling down her face. He looks gutted.
She's like, congratulations. I don't want to sleep now.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm glad.
I know.
And they're all clearly not okay.
Yeah. Nobody's actually glad about anything.
Yeah.
So basically we get a montage of them staying up all night, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's time to go home and he drops her off and he tells her to stay home and rest.
Mm-hmm.
And she's basically like, you don't tell me, I do what I want.
And
then
then Auntie comes and poor Serkan's like, great. Harika. Because now she's going to say her piece to him about, you told me you weren't going to hurt her, yada, yada, yada. And Serkan essentially just has to defend himself and say, I understand, and you need to understand that this is the last thing I ever wanted to do, that I never have ever had any intention to hurt your niece. And that's kind of that. And he tells her to have a good day. She just looks at him. And then after she walks away, he's all, okay, cool. To me too. Thanks.
Yeah, because he's like, have a good day. And she doesn't say anything to him. I loved that when he did that.
I like that he so consistently gives himself the proper response that he doesn't get from them when they're mad at him.
Oh, so funny.
Oh, gosh.
Well, and it just shows how he's changed because that's what Edda was doing in all the early episodes.
Yep.
Was like, he would not really reply to her at all when she'd say like, good morning and things like that.
Yeah.
And she'd be like,
she would reply for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he has taken to doing the same thing.
Yes, I love it.
So Serkan is home. He's changed. He's on his way to work. But Seifi kind of just asks him to go calm Aydan down a little bit.
Right.
So he goes and he tells her, don't worry. You're going to know before I move out. I'm not just going to peace out and not tell you anything. But she sees the ring, and then she mentions something to Seifi, and she's like, why would he have this ring? And Seifi, of course, is like, I don't know. Maybe you should ask him. Maybe you should ask Edda.
Well, I love, too, how he's like, well, because Aydan's like, he just can't seem to forget about that girl. And captain of our ship that he is, God bless him, he's like, well, who can forget Edda? I love it. So she's, of course, that's not the answer she's looking for. So she's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's that. So Edda's updating the girls at home and Ayfer regarding the fall, how she had to stay up all night. That's why she wound up being at the summer cabin. She didn't really have much of a choice. She couldn't make a long journey, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then we hear a little hint about these black roses that are being delivered today for a special client, which when we get to them actually later, I'll read a few things because Rumsha in our Facebook group had a really good theory and did a lot of the legwork on like researching them.
Oh, I did the same thing. So.
Oh, did you? Okay, good. Well, do you want to talk about that now or when she?
No, we can do it later. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I just feel like it's more poignant when it's like her and Effie talking about it later. Yeah.
Yeah. So after Ayşe leaves, the girls talk about everything, and Eda, again, is still fixated on the whole situation and that something has to be up and what he said in the car. And she basically says he hasn't told me, but there is a reason for him breaking up with me, and I will find this reason. So Jaren asks, even if this is the case, does that still justify what he did? And Eda just says, nothing in the world can justify what he did. And so they're just kind of figuring out that whole situation with the girls. And what does Eda say? Oh, I guess that's it. I thought there was more to it, but I just looked at my screenshots, and essentially, even if there is another reason, Eda's not thrilled with him anyway, because he still did all this stuff. He was still stupid. She's still not happy that he put her through all of this, but she knows that something else has to be going on. So that's all.
Yeah. So there's it's like there's a level of comfort to it, but still not like satisfying, if that makes sense. So then Serkan is at work and also fixated, but on Efe. And basically, he's telling Engin and is it Celine in this meeting or Pearl?
It's Celine, Pearl, and Engin.
Okay. So basically saying like, listen, I don't trust the guy, which of course they're all like, haha, you don't trust anybody. And he's like, no, but listen, he already planted the seed in Ferit's ear about buying his shares if he ever wanted to sell them. So he clearly has an ulterior motive, because he points out if his only goal was to just enter the Turkish market, he's already done that. Why does he need to be a majority shareholder? Right. There's something else going on. And so he tells Engin, I want you to dig around and see what you come up with. And then they kind of also take this time to question him regarding Eda, because they're like, listen, you guys are like fire and gunpowder. Like, can you even work together? And of course, Serkan just kind of evades and doesn't say anything. And Pearl's like over it. So she's like, fine, I'm leaving if you're not going to like actually discuss this. And she's like, Engin, let's go. And then I love it because Serkan's like, Engin, this meeting is not over. Stay here. But Engin is a smart man. And he's like, I'm just going to go check on her. And he actually leaves.
I love it.
Me too.
It's so good.
So good. So
Fifi and Ayşe are chatting about the florist shop, and essentially Fifi convinces Ayşe to rent out the cafe space that they have available.
That's literally all I wrote too, because I was like, all right, there's a lot of chit chat here, but what it boils down to is she needs to rent out the space for money. Yeah,
they need the extra cash, so that's what they're going to do to fix it.
Yeah.
So Eda arrives at Art Life, and she gets two very different responses from Efe and Serkan. And oh my gosh, the fact that he gets so irritated about ice cream.
Oh my gosh, like, it's my favorite.
I was like, how is it that I love this stick in the mud so much? Because he basically tells her that before she eats any ice cream, she needs to check with a doctor because she had a head injury. And, you can't be too careful and you should talk to the doctor.
Mind you, he was pumping her full of coffee and all this other stuff to keep her awake. Didn't question the snacks she was having at his house all night. But the second Efe's like, I brought you ice cream, which don't even get me started on that. But like, yeah, how he's like, ask your doctor. It's so good. It's so, I love it. I love it so, so much.
I know. It's so good.
Every portrayal of jealousy so far in this show has been stellar. Like, it's not, because even in EK, it would get to points where it was just like ridiculous. Like,
yes.
Where you're like, oh my gosh, you're making her look like a really stupid, like it feels so different here because it's all very comical.
Yes.
And it leads to something. Like anytime Edda would get jealous, you know, she told Celine, oh, well, we're moving in together too. Oh, well, we're moving our wedding up too. Like, and yeah, that was petty in a way, but in a way that like moved the plot because it was like, oh crap, now we have to act like we live together. Now we have to do wedding dress shopping because we're getting married. Like,
exactly. It did work with the plot. It wasn't just a throwaway thing.
Right.
It actually had a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love it. And the same thing later on. It's as the scene continues because Fa just checks in on her and she's like, because Serkan just walks away basically and he calls for Layla and Ada's like, oh, sorry, Fa, do you have a meeting? And he says, oh yeah, right now, but you know, how are you doing? I'm glad that is everything okay? I'm glad you made it to work. And she says, oh yeah, everything's fine. I'm glad that I made it in. I was really bored at home. And he's like, okay, don't worry. And Serkan is just standing at the door to his office. And he's like, Fa, we have a port project meeting. And he's like, okay. He's like, all right, I'm coming. He's all, right now. Right. Come right now.
Oh my gosh. So
he just can't stand to see the two of them by each other.
It's so good. So basically in this meeting, whatever, Celine, any ounce of humanity I had left for you at this point, I was like ready to punch her in the face because she's basically just trying to get Jaren fired.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they talk a little bit about the port project, but the main point of this meeting is Celine bringing up, Jaren's young and inexperienced. I think we need a better lawyer. And stupid Fa, who's been there for half a second, is like, I'm inclined to agree. Like, he even knows anything about her and like what she's done for the company at all yet. And I love it because Ferit kind of defends her and is like, listen, like, you know, she can put together a team then if it's too much work for just one lawyer to handle. Like, let's give her a chance to do that, though. And even Serkan agrees. Like, yeah, let's do that. And then, of course, so Serkan's like, well, since we all disagree, let's put it to a vote. It's even because Ferit and Serkan vote to keep her. Fa and Celine vote to get rid of her. So he's like, fine, we'll give her a chance to put a presentation together, and then I'll make a decision based on that.
I love it.
I
love that it's still his decision.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, and then in the next scene, after the meeting kind of disbands, and Fa is like, listen, there's clearly too much tension here, so I'm going to move my company elsewhere because we clearly can't all work under the same building. Again, Serkan realizes that means no Edda, and he's like, no, we're all staying under the same building. That's not happening. And so Serkan's not down for that. And okay, this next part too, because everybody leaves and it's just him and Celine for a minute. And I love, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. One thing we missed before at that very first Art Life meeting with Serkan, Celine, Pearl, and Engin, they decide to look into Fa's past.
Yes.
And that will come up later. Did we mention that? And I'm just losing my mind?
Yeah. Well, I just said that he asked Engin to dig into him. But
okay.
It's all right. No, it's okay. So Fa goes out and is chatting with Edda a little bit, and Serkan's watching that, but we don't know what's being said, just that they're talking and stuff.
Right.
So then I love this because this next part, I said, okay, they're reading our tweets or something because a few people have written about this even in the group, but I've also tweeted about it because I'm very curious if the whole pushing chairs in all the time thing was a Kerem thing or a Serkan thing.
Oh.
And it makes it very clear in here that it must be a Serkan thing. Like,
oh my gosh, I was dying at that.
Because
oh my gosh,
when it's just him and Celine, and he's like, why do people always leave like this? And he's like, all because he gets up and goes and pushes Ferit's chair in. And then Celine's like, don't worry, I've got Engin's. Like, she pushes, and he's like, thank you. And
and then is it right here when, oh no, it's later, huh?
When Engin does it?
Yeah, it on purpose.
Yes. So I was
just
like,
to be a petty little butt.
Yep. So I was like, I wonder if they like read our stuff and then they're like, okay, let's clarify this. Because I just thought it was really funny that in the last couple weeks that's been pointed out a lot online. And then we got two very pointed scenes that he's super annoyed and fixated on chairs being pushed improperly. Hi, Zuzu. So, Serkan walks out of the meeting room and basically approaches Edda and is like, oh, so did you agree with FA? And she's like, yes. And he's like, you just immediately agreed with him? And she basically goes, listen, I said whatever's going to piss you off the most. So then he's like, wait, okay, so you agreed about moving. And she's like, moving where? What are you talking about? And he's like, FA said he's going to move the team out of this building. And she's like, I haven't heard anything about that. And he's like, then what the heck did you even say yes to? And she's like, what are you asking me about my personal life? Are you asking me about my personal life? And he's like, yes, as your boss. And she's like, you're not my boss. And even so, you cannot ask that's the last argument you should ever use when asking someone about their personal life is the fact that you're their boss.
Oh my gosh. So funny.
He's just so desperate.
Well, and because he's all trying to pry into her personal life, she decides to take advantage. So she's like, is there something you want to tell me? She starts kind of rapid fire questioning him because they say that if you rapid fire question people, the truth will come out of their mouth.
Because there's no time for them to think. Yep.
Exactly. And he says, no. What? She says, is there anything you haven't told me? What? Is there or is there not? Can you tell me? He's all, yes. No. I what? He gets all confused. She's like, are you sure? He's all, yes, Edda, I'm sure. And she's like, if there's something that you haven't told me and one day I find out, I advise you to be very scared of me.
I love that. And you know what's funny? Again, until I was watching this to take notes for the podcast, I didn't hear in that last line of questioning him go, Evet, hayır. All I had heard was hayır before. And I was like, oh, he said yes. Like,
yep. It slips out. So he's like, okay, great, beautiful. Do everything in your power to make me scared. Yep. And she's like, yeah, I will. We'll see. He's like, yeah, we will.
And then they kind of stand off, and then he's like, get back to work. And she's like, go back to your corner. Like,
I love it. He's all, every spy here is my spot. This is my company.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
The pettiness is my favorite.
So we get a quick I say scene because Nestle Han posted on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, how come everybody's all about EdSer, EdSer, EdSer? She's like, why don't we have a name? We're I say.
Oh, that's cute.
With her and Ali John, which I thought was adorable. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start calling them that now. So, anyways, so basically she's just talking to him about how she really wants Serkan and Alptekin to make up. And I'm like, oh, sure, because that can be repaired in one night. Like, but Seifi kind of diverts and is just like, hey, maybe you should start therapy again. Like, think about that. Because then it wouldn't make Serkan moving out so bad because she'd be able to go see him, you know?
Yes.
But she immediately 86s that option because she's tried 16 times already and just like never is able to stick with one therapist. So, then we get a quick Celine and Ferit scene where she basically tells him, if you're ever going to sell your shares, you have to sell them to me because I sold all my shares for you. And he's so snarky with her, and I love it because he's basically like,
me too.
You know, I love how you're so obsessed with my shares and I hold such a tiny amount. Like, that's so interesting.
He's like, you'd think that I held the majority shares of this company the way everybody's approaching me about my little 5%.
And I just love it because he's basically like, oh yeah, you'd love to kill two birds with one stone, right? Get more shares for yourself and get rid of me. Like, well, I'm not going anywhere, so deal with it. Like, I'm here for that with him. Like, he's earned it, and it seems so far that he doesn't seem to be turning villainized. So, which I'm really happy about. I did not want him to be. So,
yeah. I enjoyed that too.
But I'm here for the backbone, so.
Yes. So we have a quick little moment where Perot is trying to figure out ways to hold both the holding and the architecture firm in the same building because they have two companies now that are trying to share a space. So she's being a little creative with that. But Serkan, they're kind of talking about, oh, who can decide whether the holding stays or whether it goes, Serkan or FA? And you get what I called a shareholder showdown.
Oh, I called it a pissing contest, so yours is better.
Serkon's like, if I say the holding will stay, it will. And Effe's like,
oh my gosh, Miriam's right. You do have a Serkon voice.
Oh my gosh, that was totally subconscious.
Because she wrote us last week and was like, I love Ashley's Serkon voice. And I was like, Ashley does a Serkon voice? I've never paid close enough attention, but it just hit me right now when you did that.
I guess I do have a Serkon voice. It's only when he's being so high-handed, though, and when he's acting like such a butt. It must be how I picture the way he talks.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. And so him and Effie just kind of keep having a showdown during this episode. And
right.
Effie says, I'm a very calm and patient person, Serkon, and if I want something, I'll get it. So they have their little butting heads moment.
And I love it because Serkon's like, Kola Gilson then. Like, like it's still, he has to get that last word in. Like, well, I hope it comes easily to you.
Yeah.
Like, but did you notice too, also Edda purposely walking between them and like shoulder checking Serkon? Like,
yes. And I almost wonder if she did that just to kind of distract him.
Yeah. That's what I'm guessing.
To get him not as focused, not as fixated himself on Effie.
Yeah.
Because he is constantly fixated on Effie.
Yeah.
So
in this next scene, Pearl's outside because she's like, she had gotten stressed out trying to explain the whole how everyone's going to be where in the building. Because then people are like, what about our coffee break room? What about this? What about that? So she's out taking a breather. Well, Edda's out taking a breather too because she's just like, oh my gosh. And I love it because I really love this because I think this is really the first time she and Pearl have connected. Like, I know Pearl was suspicious of her at first, as pretty much everybody was, because she just appeared out of nowhere. And they've never had like bad blood between them.
Right.
And I think the closest we came was, in is it 13, 14? When, she kind of asks Edda, like, what are you doing around here? Like, you're not going to be here for long. Blah, blah, blah. And this I felt like made up for it. I was like, okay, I'm here for this because Edda basically is like, she broaches the subject carefully, but she basically points out, like, I know you've known Serkon a long time, and I keep getting this feeling based on some things that have happened that he's not telling me the whole story about why he broke up with me and that there must be a reason for it, that he's just not telling me. But since you've known him for so long, it seems like it might be something he would confess to you.
Yeah.
And she basically points out, like, Serkon's private about that stuff. Yeah, I've known him a long time, but he would never tell me. Right. However, I will say something. And she points out, like, when you were lost in the woods, we were all being told where to go by the camp guy and where we needed to head. She's like, and we all headed in those different directions, but Serkon was frozen in place until he, like, basically felt where he needed to go. Like, Edda, he felt you and knew where to go find you.
Yep.
And she's like, if that's not having feelings for someone, I don't know what is.
Right.
And Edda's kind of like, really? Like, that's what happened? And so it kind of gets her going. And she's like, yeah, like, I don't know. He followed what seemed logical to him and it told him to go that way. Well, that then triggers Edda remembering the conversation he and Celine had when they didn't know they were being listened in on by Ferit and Edda. And basically him telling Celine, if I listen to my mind and my logic, like, it tells me you're the person I should be with.
Right.
So then for Edda, she kind of jumps to this conclusion, like, oh, maybe logic was his reason. Like, he started to listen to logic again. And now that Celine is free, basically decided that she's the logical decision. And that's why he broke up with me. And so she basically tells Celine or Pearl, like, maybe you're onto something. Maybe the reason is reason. Like, and kind of, is like, thank you, and goes back inside.
Right.
So
So then we get a really cute moment where Layla brings out a cupcake because it's Pearl's birthday, and Layla remembered, and Pearl's obviously very touched by this, and it's just a really cute moment.
I agree.
And I love that Layla was so considerate because she's told her, I wasn't sure if you wanted to make it a big deal or not, so I just wanted to have this little cupcake for you, and so they have a nice, sweet little moment.
Agreed. We get a real quick thing where Ferry is giving Jaren a heads up and warns her about what's coming and basically says, I think you need to reach out to your dad and ask for his help in assembling a team because I don't want you to lose out on getting to be a lawyer for these prominent companies just because of something like this,
Right. And just to kind of move that storyline along, she does ask her dad for help. He helps her. She revamps her presentation and the contract with her dad's help. Ferry even gives her kind of a pep talk later on, right before she does her presentation, and then she wins them over, and she ends up becoming the lawyer for the holding as well as the company, as well as the architecture firm. So that's kind of that. Yes,
I will touch then too, since we're wrapping that storyline. When she comes out from her pep talk with Ferry.
Right, with Edda.
Edda, because Edda notices Celine kind of watching them.
Yeah.
And so Edda is looking out for her friend and basically tries to warn her. But, Jaren makes a good point because she basically is like, Edda, I appreciate that you're worried about me, but I'm a big girl and can make my own decisions. Was I telling you any of this when you were in a fake relationship with someone who was trying to break them up? And then you wound up falling in love with him? Did I say anything about that? No, I supported you.
Yeah.
So, and it is just I just don't want you to wind up hurt, basically, like I did. And Jaren's like, well, I can handle that myself. Thanks. And I got that.
It's a hard position. It's a hard position because you and I have both been in situations with each other where we have had to make that decision of, do I say something about this or do I let her decide for herself and
support
I'm just
her
there as the supportive friend? Yeah.
Yeah,
and
whether it goes either way. Yeah.
Exactly. So I could see it either way. I don't know that I feel upset at either one of them for this situation. I don't think that I do because we know their intentions with each other.
And they both have the right, they honestly both have the right attitude and intentions with it. Yeah. It's just they didn't happen to align. So, and that happens in friendships. And so I did like that that was portrayed. It's not that they're on bad terms or they're not speaking to each other because of it. It just is showing sometimes friends don't always see eye to eye on things, but you know what? They're still friends. So
Exactly.
So then we get Big Boss calling Engin. Who's just Alptekin. And basically, we kind of touched on this. Alptekin's I'm arranging a game night for the guys. And I'm sitting here of all the things you could arrange, you think playing video games is going to be the start on the road of healing between you and your son. You know what would be a good start on the road of healing is you stepping up and taking the responsibility for what you did. And you telling Edda what happened, because then she'll only be reminded of her parents' death every time she looks at you, Alptekin, not every time she looks at Serkan, because with Serkan telling her, which he mentioned this, in the episode that he broke up with her to Engin, if he tells her, all she's going to see every time she looks at him is the reminder of his family being responsible for her parents' death, because he will have been the one to tell her. So I'm if Alptekin does it, though, then not only does she know, but every time she looks at Serkan, it's not going to be a reminder of that conversation.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
but Baba is trying to treat a broken arm with a Band-Aid right now, and it's just not going to work. And the weird thing is he knows it's not going to work, but he's still pushing it.
Yep.
So Engin basically promises that he'll get Serkan there.
Right.
He's like, don't worry. We'll have a lot of fun. I'll make sure he gets there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So.
What's next? Oh, Layla and Edda. Edda kind of pushes with her new theory.
Right. That's right. Yeah, because she now is kind of thinking, oh, well, the logical explanation then is Celine. And now Celine is unattached because she and Ferit broke up. So Eda kind of tells Layla, hey, so, you're very observant and you always know everything that's going on in the office. So what do you think about Celine ever since this wedding situation has happened? Her and Ferit, do you think that her and Serkan are going to get back together? And Layla just kind of tells her, no way. Mm-mm. They had their moment. They'll always be close to each other because of the holding and because of their friendship. But in my opinion, Celine is still focused on Ferit, and there is no chance that her and Serkan are ever going to get back together.
Well, and I love that she pointed out too, like, one of the things I love about you, Eda, is one of the very first things you did after I met you is, and I told you, like, nobody's ever able to point out Serkan's mistakes. She's like, one of the first things you did was point out his mistake and make him see it.
Yep.
And she said, and the look on his face that he had when you did that is the same look that's on his face all the time now. So he realizes what a mistake it was to break up with you. So stay strong and keep fighting.
Yes.
And like, Layla, my girl.
I know. And then the way she walks into his office, because he's just staring at them.
And daggers.
I did love his laugh, his little sneaky laugh when he can totally tell that Layla's pretending to work. He can't help but laugh at her. But then Layla comes in because she's like, he's staring at me. He must, do you need something? You must need something, Serkan Bey. What can I do for you? And she almost treats him like a little kid.
Yes, it's like patronizing because she's like, would you like some coffee or some chai? Like,
Serkan Bey, you must need something. What can I get for you?
Oh, so funny.
Okay, so this is when Eda gets the call about the Black Rose delivery. She is making sure everything has gone through, and F.A. overhears, because of course he does.
F.A. eavesdrops,
and that's that. And he's like, oh, I would love to see black roses. These are very special black roses. Do you think that maybe I could see these black roses with you and take you to back to the florist?
Where the black roses are that I can see? And meanwhile, I am living for all of Serkan's eye rolling as he's observing their conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think he can really hear what they're saying, but just that they're interacting. And he's like typing on his computer while like staring at them and rolling his eyes.
Angrily. Angry typing.
So good. So stick a pin in that.
Yeah.
Engin invites for the game night. He sees Ferit, invites him. Podoril starts to overhear part of that, and so she sort of assumes it's him planning something for her birthday.
Yeah, it's funny how that wording could not happen in English, because since Turkish has no gender, our translations say he or she,
right? But
in Turkish, that doesn't exist.
It's just they, basically.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Wow. I spit it out, Ashley. So I just thought that was funny. And that's kind of a unique thing. Obviously, you could make that happen using English.
Sure.
But you couldn't use those specific phrases.
Pronouns.
Yes, because Engin says, oh, it'll be a surprise for O. But she hears that and it could mean her too.
Right.
Because it's her birthday.
Yep. So then Engin comes to Serkan in the office, and I wrote, oh my gosh, because he's like, he walks in and Serkan doesn't even look up from his screen, and he's like, yes, Engin, which then makes Engin really annoyed, and it made the perfect eye roll gif that I've used probably 5 times already. So he rolls his eyes and he's like, what are you doing, Serkan? And then of course snarky Serkan is like, what you haven't been doing, I'm working. Then we get another eye roll from Engin, and he basically tells him about game night, and and I wrote, and that idea takes off about as well as a lead balloon.
Yeah, it's so funny though. I love how Engin's like, bro, when have I asked you for anything? Serkan's like, you always ask me for things.
And he's like, well, we're friends. I'm supposed to be able to do that. So basically, Serkan's like, I'm not coming. You guys have fun. LOL that you thought you could get me to come to this. And besides, even if I did come, you'd lose. And Aengin's like, well, then come prove it to me. And he's like, no, thanks. And then Aengin's all mad because he's not coming. So as he leaves, he messes up all the chairs on the at the table and bolts out of there.
And Robot Bolat is like, you know that I hate when you do crap like this.
And gets up and pushes all the chairs back in.
Because he cannot help himself.
Yep. So then Aengin runs into Effie and invites him. And he's like, I'll be there after I drop Edda off at the nursery. Which, of course, then Serkan's soulmate spidey senses are tingling. And he's like, he hears the word Edda and is immediately at attention.
Yeah.
And Peril again gets further convinced that birthday plans are in play when Farid is vague about what his plans are for the evening.
Yeah. And
so
everybody's leaving early.
Right.
And they're like, oh, something must be happening.
Right. So Effie's dropping Edda off, and they kind of catch her in the middle of showing the cafe to a potential renter. So basically, and this is news to Edda too.
Yeah.
So Edda's hearing about it for the first time in front of Effie, and she's not really excited about it. Like, so now we have to like order and pay for chai from our own cafe. Like, that's going to feel weird. It's on our property. But Ifair basically is like, listen, it's something temporary, and let's maybe not discuss this in front of company. And, I don't want to make him uncomfortable. So we kind of switched to a different scene, but let's just continue with this one.
Okay.
So eventually Edda is showing him the black rose. They start to chat about it. And do you want to start talking about black roses from Halfeti? Is that how you say it? Halfeti?
Halfeti, yeah. Okay. So in general, the consensus is that black roses that are truly black all the time do not exist. So that's an interesting little factoid. But people will dye them black, or there are these specific roses that come only from this region. And it's actually pretty interesting because they only can grow in this region, and it has to do with the pH of the soil and all this other stuff. And as they start out, they're actually a deep red, but as the summer goes on, they turn black. But if they're removed from the soil, just like Edda says, they end up turning red.
Yeah, they go back to burgundy.
So as far as meanings, there are lots of different symbolic meanings. Of course, there's like death, which is like the most common. But they can also mean new beginnings. So they can have positive meaning. It's not just all death and destruction. So sometimes they will represent rebirth and a new beginning. Often it might symbolize the end of a major event. So it could mean the end of something like a relationship or a career, etc. It also has strong ties to tragic love and hatred. So depending on the person, they can mean a tragic love for others, and they can mean a deep and pure devotion for someone else. So I like that symbolism. Personally, I feel like those connections, like the end of a major event or the end of a season even of a relationship, because we know that Edda and Serkan's relationship isn't ever going to be the same once she knows the truth. But it could also just be leading us towards rebirth and a new beginning and a pure devotion between the two of them.
Which I think is a good point because someone had actually pointed out really quickly, this just kind of goes with it, about the whole like rebirth, like almost like we're starting over, because in the last episode, when she's back at the flower shop after they've broken up, and she's like,
saying you were hearing her inner thoughts.
Yes. I don't know. I don't think we mentioned this, but those were her exact words in episode 1.
Yes.
Dream, Italy, reality, petunias. And it was someone named Vinya on Instagram who basically was like, she was very sweet. She's like, I love the podcast. Like, I just had a thought that I wanted to share with you. and she pointed out that those words from Edda while she's making a flower arrangement in 15 are the same words that she says in episode 1 when she's like, let me tell you the story about how I fell in love with the man who ruined my dreams, basically. Yeah. So I think you're right. Like that ties in then with the whole new beginning. It's almost like we're starting over, but in a different way, obviously, because all this stuff has happened. So we can't start from the beginning in the same way.
Exactly. We have to start differently. We have to start new. And one website said that since a true black rose is impossible to find in nature, it emphasizes an utmost devotion and exclusivity in a relationship. I know, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
And let's see. Yeah, a lot of it is new beginnings, a journey to the unknown, a major change, death of old habits and introduction of a new system, heralding a new era of hope, an era of possible peace, and that the black rose can bring great joy.
Yes, I agree.
So, I kind of went into the whole, I meant to look that up, but I didn't get to it. Because there was a really cool blog article about the history of Turkey's black rose specifically and the Halfeti region. And it's got this really interesting history. It's like a half submerged town because there was a whole tragedy with a dam that was built. And so half of the city is like underwater, basically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it itself, the city itself kind of has its own tragedy and this
and rebirth.
Very symbolic, exactly. This very symbolic story of rebirth and how so many of its inhabitants have been through a lot, especially if they've been through all of those big tragic moments. So I just thought that was really interesting too. And there was also a Dizi called Karagül,
the Black Rose.
Which and I meant to look up that Dizi because just to see what the storyline was. And because it made me wonder, okay, is Ayşe referring to that other Dizi? Is that storyline something specific to death and rebirth and new beginnings and that kind of a thing? But it was past midnight and I ended up falling asleep.
I get you. I totally understand.
So that's really the extent of the research that I did. But I really thought that this almost feels like the beginning of a new cycle in the storyline, of a new arc in the storyline. Because things have, the last couple episodes, it almost seems like things are winding down in certain ways. And it hasn't been a super dynamic story as far as EdSer.
Right.
And I know that some people are kind of upset about that, but I feel like this is a good symbol of us maybe ushering in a new era of their relationship.
Yes. And that kind of ties in. And I told you a lot of this off mic when we were talking the other day. But yeah, I just want to encourage anyone who's like maybe struggling a little bit, who's like, I miss early days EdSer, I miss this. I get that because there's nothing like those magical, just like it was with EK, those magical early episodes with the explosive chemistry and them fighting their feelings for one another because they're not supposed to be feeling, this way. And especially with these two, they're supposed to be enemies and all this stuff, and we can't stay there, or they'd always just be enemies who are just fighting feelings for each other. And then eventually even that chemistry and sizzle would kind of get old,
Right. And where would the character growth be?
Right. Absolutely. So I think rather than yes, appreciate and love those things about those early episodes, but also look at what that chemistry and all of that it's leading to this, though, to this growth, to this new era, this new chapter in their relationship. And just like in any real life relationship, it's never going to stay the same as it was at the beginning because you're just going to start accumulating this familiarity with each other, almost like a routine and there's just going to be a level of comfort that starts to exist that can't exist in the beginning because
Exactly.
you don't know each other. So I don't think it's so much that they are losing chemistry or anything like that. It's just that the chemistry is growing and changing into something different, as it should. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's a lot of the stuff that Ramsha had pointed out too.
Okay.
And like researched. So maybe you guys read a lot off of like the same
We probably did.
sources, but good.
I got you, girl.
Yeah. So you guys had a lot of the same views with that, which is just really cool.
Yeah.
And
I love that people do research and stuff like that. It's so fun. So thank you, Ramsha, for all of that.
I agree. So and I also noticed that FA points out like, yeah, my color changed too, just like the black rose when I was basically like plucked from my hometown. So when he was plucked from Mardin and into Italy, his color changed. So I'm like, oh, so who were you? Like, and who are you exactly? Just adding more to his mystery.
Yeah, definitely.
So, let's see, where are we at? Oh, so we also, in between that, found out or see that game night's kind of beginning. We're just missing Efe and Serkan, but the other guys are kind of getting settled and all that.
Yes.
And Aidan winds up pestering Serkan about game night. She goes over and he's like, I can see you, Mom. What's up? And, she's like, wants him to go over. And he's like, no, like a night of playing games is not going to even remotely fix what he did. I cannot forgive him.
Yeah.
And, and so then she kind of changes the subject a little bit and points out that she notices he's still wearing the ring and asks why. And at the same time, we get a flash over to Ayfer and Edda.
Yes.
Because Ayfer notices the same thing. And it's funny because the first time I watched this, I didn't pay close enough attention to their answer because, it says to remember something I never want to forget, which makes you go, aw, but then it says to not fall in love.
Yes.
Well, what I thought initially they said was to not fall in love again. And then I realized that's not what they say. They say not to fall in love with anyone else. So, and I feel like that's different because it's like the way I'm choosing to take it is that they're both just going to be in love with each other forever. And like they can't possibly love anyone else versus it probably was meant more to be like, it's just a reminder so that I never fall in love again. Like, this sucks. But
see, that's funny because my subs say that I will never fall in love again.
Oh, see, so mine said anyone else. So I was like, well, I'm going with that because I like that because
I like that too.
It's not either of them denying that they're still in love with each other,
right?
So
well, I think you could even take that I won't fall in love again as they're still in love with the other one.
Well, that's
they're still
true.
in love with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because to fall in love again implies to fall in love with a new person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So they're never going to love anyone but each other. Obviously.
That's my takeaway from that scene. So.
All right. I 100% agree.
So, then we get a flash over to where Celine and Peril are realizing that Engin really didn't plan anything.
Poor Peril.
I know, but good on
Oh
Celine.
my gosh.
She's like, well, then what do you want to do? Let's make something happen tonight. It's your birthday.
Yes.
And so Peril wants to do karaoke and Celine's like, okay, I'll make the call. Basically, I'm assuming this is because of COVID times. Because I was like, there's literally nobody else in that club. But then I was like, well, they had to probably do it that way because of COVID. So
yeah.
Basically, they make it seem like they rented the place out just for them to, because she's like, call whoever you want. Because she even says, like, can I invite Edda? And she's like, it's your birthday. Like, ask whoever you want to come. So, which works out because right at that time, Ayfer's trying to tell the girls, like, get Edda to go out. Like, she's just staying at home. She's just this. She's just that. Like,
she's fixated on Serkan.
Right. So, this works out because as the girls are trying to convince her to go do something, Peril invites her to karaoke and tells her she can bring the girls too. Like, so they're all going to go out.
Which I thought this is I really liked this turn of events.
Me too.
I was like, yeah, get all these girls together. They can have some fun.
I agree.
They don't need a man to organize a surprise for her.
That's right. So on a side note, I just want to say, poor Pearl, because in a span of like 2 scenes, every time her name is said,
the
Super Riki subs.
Oh my gosh.
It's like it showed up
terrible.
as Doug, Fervor, Ardor, Ardent, Dust, Dive. Like what? Like what?
I know. And half the time Edda's name shows up as Ed.
Oh,
Ed and Dust are gonna go do some karaoke.
The things we sift through just to be able to watch a DZ. So, as Pearl's getting her keys for them to leave, she discovers Erdem is like living in the break room, and they basically have a whole thing that boils down to her being like, "Okay, you can't like live here. That's not how this works."
Yeah.
So he winds up getting an invite to girls' night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I love how he's kind of letting her down easy. He's like, no, I don't think I could go. I'm here with my loneliness and I have to think about my life and think about what I'm going to do. And she's like, Fifi will be there. And he says, okay, I'll be there.
I love it. So then we're back on guys' game night, and Baba's about to pour drinks, and he asks Serkan to come help him.
Right.
Okay, can we please talk about the fact that Serkan literally just threw a jersey on over his his collared work shirt? Like,
I love how on brand this is for Serkan.
It totally is.
All of the other guys physically changed their shirts and are just wearing their jerseys. But not Serkan Bey. He's got his little collar sticking
and
out.
His long sleeves rolled up and still sticking out from under these sleeves. And I was like, what? It's so absurd, but it's so him.
This whole episode, I was like, I should be so annoyed with this man. Mm-hmm. Everything that he does should irritate me because he's such a little stick in the mud. He's such an old man in a hot man body. But I just laugh every time and I love it.
Me too.
Every stick up his butt thing that he does, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're hilarious. You're so adorable. Mm-hmm. Why do I love you?
I know. It's the Karem effect, I'm telling you. So basically, Serkan and Baba are in the kitchen, and Serkan's like, listen, none of this, you cannot fix this with video games. But don't worry, I'm not going to let FAC like an ununited front. Like, so you don't have to worry about that tonight. But that it also doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And that's, that's the crux of that. Yeah. So karaoke night, the girls are all starting to arrive, and I love it because Ed does like, it's late, so I couldn't find you anything, but like I did find you this, and it's a birthday tiara for her to wear. Yes. And then
Layla's looking all cute.
Yes, when she walks in all hot and unbuttoned and like
and everybody's like, wow, Layla. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, I look like this every night. I just like to look professional at work.
I loved that so much. So Pearl is going to sing first, of course, because it's her birthday and they all know it's her dream to
it's her secret dream, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so she sings a song called Bir Anda, which they did just release on Spotify and Apple Music, her cover of it. And then we basically just get like a montage of game night and karaoke, back and forth. Engin and Ferit wind up winning, which is much probably to Serkan's dismay because we all know how much he hates losing. Right. And
real quick, can we go back to that song? Mm-hmm. Because the lyrics
for Bir Anda?
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm going to start after, because she does kind of the chorus. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start at the first verse.
Okay.
Because she says, I'll take my revenge on everyone, but I won't die. Nothing will destroy me. Believe me, you won. Life doesn't make sense without me. I can smile in an instant. I'm sorry. Eric just got home. And he's like, sorry, is the microphone picking all that up? I was like, yeah, it's just super sensitive. And he's all right, sorry, I'll get out of your life.
Oh my gosh, Eric, I love you.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. Pick up your lyrics.
Okay.
We left off.
So she sings, life doesn't make sense without me. I can smile in an instant. I can cry in an instant. And the end may come in an instant. One moment, never mind, don't ask. I can smile in an instant. I can cry in an instant. One moment, never mind, don't ask. So I really liked that because the whole I can't be broken. And we know that for Edda, that her emotions have been very close to the surface lately because of the whole situation.
Yeah.
The lyrics just felt poignant to me. So I was like, when I saw that Turkflick had actually translated the lyrics, I was like, oh, these are good. I'm screenshotting these.
Yeah, definitely. So she sings. Angen calls Peril because he's all excited and he wants to like show her that he and Fittery like won the game night. But then very quickly he realizes that he made a capital B big mistake. Because
Angen, you dummy.
I know. Because, he figures out it's her birthday, he didn't do anything, all this stuff. So basically the boys are now scrambling to figure out where they are and how they can fix this. And I love it because like Serkan calls Layla, who, good for her, is like, because he starts ordering her for like chocolates and all this stuff. And she's like, you should have asked me this during the work hours. Sorry. And he's like, but why didn't you remind me that it was her birthday? And she just hangs up on him.
Yep.
And then tells the bartender, that was just my boss. Don't worry. Because she's
not
like
a boyfriend.
flirting with him. Yes.
She's like, when are you off?
So good.
And then Ferry is just laughing at Angen because he's like, yeah, you dumb idiot. What do you think you're doing? You're reaping what you sowed, bro. And then Effe's like, well, I'll call. And it's so funny because they're all such idiots. They're like, well, why didn't my assistant remind me? Because Serkan's like, I'll call Layla because obviously it's their job to run their lives, not their own job as an adult male.
Yeah.
And Angen's like, Erdem didn't even remind me. He's all upset. So Effie decides to call.
Do you notice, though, after that he tells Serkan, like, I guess sometimes I think you are right about him? Like,
yes.
Poor Erdem.
Because Erdem didn't remember either.
No. But again, this is your girlfriend now, so you don't really have an excuse.
Yeah, dude.
You guys have all been friends for years.
For how long?
So sorry.
There's no excuse.
You don't get to blame your assistants on this one. No. So Effie basically gets a warm reception from Peril because he hasn't done anything wrong to her.
Yeah.
So she invites him to come down and party with them. Like, so he figures out where they are. And of course, Serkan perks up when he hears Edda, because someone's like, is that Edda dancing on stage with Jaren? And he's like, Edda's there? His spidey senses. But of course, he still plays it cool and is like, I'm not going. You guys go do that. That's not my thing. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And
yeah, quote, I'm not going.
Yeah. So the guys all head out and we're back at the karaoke bar and Celine tries to shade Jaren after they like have fun on stage.
Yeah. We did see Erdem sing.
Oh, did that happen already?
Yeah.
Okay.
It happens right before Fa calls.
Okay.
But yeah, so
okay. And
he has a great voice.
He does.
Basically.
And Fifi notices. So,
So yes, then Celine tries to shame Jaren.
Yeah, like, oh, you seem to really like the attention on yourself. And I love it because Jaren's like, yep, sure do. Like, and walks off.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So then Edda walks up to Celine and Edda has had a little help from alcohol in...
Yeah, our girl's been taking shots, y'all, so...
Yes, and her friends are like, maybe you should slow down a little. And she's like, I'm fine. This is a great night. And so she asks Celine, do you think Serkan broke up with me because our relationship was not guided by logic? Because she, in her little drunk brain logic, is thinking, I should ask Celine this question because Celine was in a relationship with him. And Celine is the one that he said was the logical choice. Why don't I go talk to her? But Celine kind of just says, Eda, only after a really long time can you actually understand what Serkan is doing and why. And Eda's like, well, I don't have that much time.
I love that, though, because she's just like, no, I want to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
So then the boys arrive, and so Engin, and I wrote, Engin, you dummy. He brought her a bouquet of flowers after we had this whole ordeal about how we know that she only wants flowers that are planted because ones that are picked then die. They don't continue to live on. So for
you
her,
had one job, bro.
And
we've
she's
had
like,
this conversation.
Yep. Which she essentially implies because she looks at them and she's like, okay, I see we're not getting anywhere tonight. And basically informs him that he's only there as a colleague tonight. And
good for you, Parole.
Amen.
I mean, poor girl. What a stinking dummy.
I know.
She should have slapped his little head.
I know. So Eda comments, on Serkan's absence and then decides she's going to march up on stage and it's her turn to sing. And she sings a song called Kanlatarum var Ruhumda. And do you have lyrics for that too? I took some off of Google, but I'm wondering if these ones will be better.
Oh, well, I do.
Okay.
I don't know about whose will be better, though, but we'll see.
I'll stop you if anything sounds weird. How about that?
Okay. So she sings, don't let me into your heart in vain. Don't put your arms around me. I can't stay there. Laugh, have fun. Don't say bitter words. After all, what is life? Short meetings. This is who I am. This is who I am. It has always been like this. It's always been like this. I don't go back to the past. I don't shed tears. I'm much stronger with my mistakes. Don't call me on your path. My way is different. I'm headed to a completely different place. I have other goals. This is who I am. This has always been like this. I can burn in the dark. I can find myself in a vacuum. I will not fall. My soul has wings. I can leave just like I came. I can give up on love. I don't have a chain around my neck. Don't let me into your heart in vain. Don't put your arms around me. I can't stay there.
So, yeah, those were better.
And Serkan walks in as she's singing this song with these lyrics about new beginnings and strength and happiness and don't hold on to me. I can't stay there. And all this, I was like, oh, wow.
I know. Well, and he's staring at her with an intensity that makes me squirm. And, but I wrote, oh man, someone just couldn't stay away because of those invisible strings or, as he pointed out, invisible handcuffs that bind them together. And yeah, I love it. I love that whole what that's symbolizing and the unspoken conversation that's being had right here. And I will point out, Kerem and Hande did an Instagram live during the Reclams last week. And it was very cute. You should go watch it if you haven't. But he had asked about the scene. It was funny because she was like, are you watching? And he kind of started laughing. So it was like very clear he wasn't watching, which he's stated before he doesn't really like watching himself like once he's finished a project.
Yeah.
So I get that. But I was like, Kerem, turn it on mute or something for the ratings, please. Like, but anyways.
Right.
Anyways.
Help yourself out, dude.
Yeah. So, but anyways, he was like, they were talking about this scene. And she's like, yeah, unfortunately, like, I didn't get to sing it because they didn't have time to go to a studio to, like, properly do it. So, and I love this because he was like, well, when we were recording that, you were absolutely singing it and it sounded great. Like,
aww.
So I thought that was so sweet. So it made me kind of bummed that we didn't actually get to hear Hande's voice while she was singing this. But I also understand they were very pressed for time. So they probably just had to use a version that was already recorded that they could just dub over her singing it. So I just wanted to point that out because there was a lot of back and forth, people wondering if that was really her voice or not. I immediately thought it was not when I heard it.
Me too. It doesn't sound like her.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, singing voices can sound different than speaking voices for sure. But even with Bashak, I could tell that was actually her voice.
Yes, absolutely. So she finishes singing and she kind of stares at him as she walks off the stage and finishes. Mm-hmm. And she walks right over to him and asks why he came. Because she's like, you don't come to parties, but you came. And he can tell something's a little off because he asks this several times throughout the night. He's like, are you okay? And she's like, I'm fine, but let's say that I'm not. She's like, I have to ask you something. And he's like, okay. So she basically confronts him like, I know you probably don't think I would remember this, but you said something in the car when we were driving up to the summer house. And she tells him what he said. And she doesn't buy his answer because he's like, oh, well, you thought we were together and I didn't want to upset you further because you were injured and recovering. But and I love it because she's like, you know what? I don't believe you. Mm-hmm. And she basically tells him, I will figure this out and I will find out what it is that you aren't telling me. And you're going to be sorry when that happens. And it's funny. He doesn't deny it. He just says, Tamam.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So, Aydan and Seifi come to talk to Alptekin because he was left behind when all the boys left, and he's still feeling sad about the whole situation. Mm-hmm. So, she is still upset about the possibility of Serkan moving out. He, good for him, says that they need to respect his decision.
Yep.
But eventually they're able to, because of this, did we already talk about this?
Not really. Like, okay. I mean, kind of.
This is just kind of the turning point.
Right.
When they're finally able to convince her to actually get back into therapy.
Yes, because he's basically like, I can't force him to forgive me. And even admits, like, and after what I took away from him, like, can you blame him? So at least points for Baba there. Like, yeah. And so Aydan finally realizes that, and I wrote, oh, sure, now you realize that maybe he should have told her the truth from the beginning and not taken your stupid advice about your stable boy. Like, yeah, I'm still bitter about that. So basically, he encourages her to try therapy again. He's like, that way you're not trapped and you can see your son whenever you want, Yeah. And she basically agrees to give it a try again. So that's what this all boils down to. Yeah. Then we're back at the karaoke bar. Everyone's coupling off to dance. Yes. And do you notice how Edda immediately pushes Jaren and Efe together to keep...
Oh, yeah.
To keep Ferit and Jaren from dancing together. And she even, like, throws Ferit a look.
She does. I was like, dang, girl. She is not being subtle at all. Well, so I guess we know drunk Edda is not subtle.
No. So they start dancing...
Celine ends up leaving.
Fifi Erdem kind of share a quick little moment. And the dance is over. And Efe asks Edda, like, do you want me to take you home? Because she's loudly talking about Serkan and how, oh, don't worry. He's not mad at you. He's just mad at me. And yada, yada, yada. She's just kind of going on. So he's like, do you want me to take you home? She's like, no, who's leaving? I'm not leaving. And then she marches over to Serkan and is like, why aren't you having any fun? And he says to her, and again, this is just another clue from him that Edda's on the right track, because he says, listen, we're broken up, but whatever it is that you're doing with Efe, please don't do it in front of me. Mm-hmm. And initially she's like, wait, what? Why would he even care about this? But then she's like, oh, because of probably how it looks to other people, right? Like she's not necessarily thinking it affects him, like personally, but just like the appearance of it. And so she's like, you know what? Whatever. And she's like, you really are an insensitive robot that all you're concerned about is what it's going to look like. Right. And he then grabs her hand and asks her to dance a little. Now, okay, I loved this, but it also, like, it felt a little bit like, okay, but why? Like, yeah, it felt pretty random. Yes, like I'm happy with it, but it also didn't make much sense because like they're kind of I get why she's maybe a little bit like loose with it because she's got some alcohol lubricating her
senses.
Her senses, yes.
Yeah.
So, but I don't really understand why he's like kind of being, maybe he's just entertained by it. And so it kind of makes him smile and break that facade he has to keep. Like, because, he kind of smiles with her and is like, Yavash. And,
right. And part of me was thinking, okay, is it him kind of trying to take care of her because she is drunk right now and he's maybe a little worried and he's like, hey, why don't you just come here
and dance with
we'll
me.
Dance a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I can make sure you're on your feet and you're safe. And maybe even part of it was to keep her away from FA.
Okay, that would make sense. Sense.
Those seem like the most logical explanations to me because, yeah, it was a little out of left field.
Right.
Because they've just been fighting.
Right.
And it felt a little weird, but I was like, okay, well, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility at the same time.
Right, absolutely.
If he's trying to keep her away from FA, if he's trying to keep her, contained
or even
she's drunky.
Mm-hmm. Or he's just losing resolve, like, because we know he really does not want to be broken up with her. And so...
Well, and we see that when they have their little moment and he's being cute with her, telling her to slow down, and she looks at him. She has a moment where, her inhibitions are gone.
Yep.
Her feelings are coming right out of her eyeballs, and she's just staring at him, and she makes this little noise. I was like,
and she's like, and then she's like a little off kilter, and he asks again, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, and then he's like, "Come on, I'll take you home."
Yeah.
So he again. I think this is just going back to Sarkhan being the most concerned for Eda's safety. Yeah. Above all things. For her, he's concerned for her well-being. And he's kind of probably thinking, I don't trust FA. I'm not going to let that dude take her home right now when she is like this.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to take care of her and I'm going to take her home so that I know without a doubt that she's safe.
Yeah. But... she kind of has a bit of a reality bubble pop. Yeah. And she's like, no, you're the last man to take me home. And then she just basically calls the girls. Yeah. And they leave together. And do you notice he's like, Kuzlar, as they're like walking out the door. I'm like, oh, he just really wanted to take her home and make sure she was okay. But so, we get hungover Kuzlar the next morning.
They're hurting.
Yes, they are. And Ed does kind of remembering, oh my gosh, like I danced with him and I even was like clinging to him. What's wrong with me? She's like, she's like, you know what? But then I did let go of him and walk away. So at least I held on to some of my charisma, like some of my. So, but she also states to the girls that, you know what? I really think he must have been telling the truth. Like he really did say in the car what he said just to go along with my delusion at the time to not upset me. Before I remembered on my own. So, I'm basically done trying to pick that apart. Yeah. So, then the whole office is hungover.
They're all suffering. This whole Erdem Layla thing, how they're both asleep and just sitting next to each other with their sunglasses and their mugs.
So good.
Oh my gosh, so good.
So good. So then, everybody's pretty much useless, and Sarkhan arrives at work, and FA is outside waiting for him, and basically is like, listen, I know you don't like that Ida and I work together, but basically, like, I get what I want, and I want her working for me, and besides, like, she needs the money right now anyway, so I don't see why you would be pushing against this. And he's like, she needs the money, what are you talking about? And he's like, because, like, the flower shop's not doing well. They're having to rent out the cafe space. And now the money that Edda makes will help pay for installments at school and all of that. So he's like, oh, okay. And then walks inside. Now, part of me's like, okay, FA, like, part of me, it's like, okay, are you not quite as bad as I thought? Because, like, you just openly shared this information with him. Or did you just do that because you're just dumb and it wasn't even occurring to you? Like,
I thought he was trying to flex the information that he knows.
Okay.
That's what it kind of came across to me.
Yeah.
Was you're not going to get her away from me because I know this information about her and she needs the money right now anyway.
And I can afford to pay her this. So
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But Boy does not even wait until he's inside. the second he turns away from Efe, he is pulling out his phone.
I know.
And I was like, oh my gosh, Serkan, I love you so much.
I know, because he is not going to flaunt that. Just because Layla's made it very clear. I mean, we already knew this about him, but like Layla then makes it very clear that he does all these things for people who he cares about without wanting or even desiring recognition.
Yep.
And so he immediately calls Idol and basically is like, hey, I know you haven't really been happy with like your floral landscape person. Like, I have a company that I can recommend to you. I'll get you the info as soon as possible. And she's like, great, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then immediately he discovers the office is hungover and it's, he throws water on Engin and
so funny.
All this stuff. And it's really funny. So next scene, Idol has already called iFair and basically is telling the girls all about their new client, and it takes a few minutes because they're hungover, but Edda is like happy and then immediately assumes that it's Efe because logic would say he just overheard us talking about this and now all of a sudden we have this new client. He must have done that. And that's that.
Can I just say how eternally irritated I am that these girls look so beautiful when they're supposedly hungover.
Oh, I know.
They look better hungover than I do when I'm like
just waking up
legitimately. Like come on.
I know. Her hair was more messed up being hungover than it was lying in a ditch. Did you notice that?
But like all of their makeup is perfect. Poor Fifi and Jaren, they've been wearing those outfits for
all night,
at least 24 hours, and they still look totally fine. They look totally beautiful.
Listen.
I was like, this is not fair or realistic.
Because let's not pretend that they weren't like completely smashed against the pillows, probably drooling all night. Give me a break.
Their eyeliner wasn't even rubbed off or anything.
I know. So this would have been a good spot for an ad where somebody actually mentions how good they look and they could like be like, well, this is the eyeliner
and makeup or whatever. Yeah, that's true.
So
missed opportunity, Fox.
So now we're in a meeting with Serkan, Celine, and Engin, and Engin has Efe info. And the first thing he points out is that he's from Mardin, which immediately Serkan's like, oh, really? He's from Mardin. And they're like, yeah, why does that matter? And he's like, no reason. Keep going. And now it's ironic here because he studied on a scholarship, but when he graduated, he suddenly had all this money to open a large company in Italy. So basically they're like, okay, the only logic is he must have had a secret investor.
Right.
And that's why I wrote Baba Ande, show yourself. So but again, it just confirms to Serkan, okay, that really begs the question then why he needed us if he already has a cash cow. Like this is getting more and more, shady.
Yes.
So then the way these subs went, I was like, okay, this can't be right. Because it wrote that he survived his first partner. And I was like, so his first partner died? Well,
he's a murderer.
all he did was basically the company did well enough that he was able to buy his first partner out and be the sole owner of the company.
So Serkan is saying, we're going to get him out before he gets rid of me.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
So, or maybe it is a twist and Serkan's afraid for his life.
Yeah. Maybe he really did survive his first partner. So Edda gets to work and of course Efe's like, oh, I didn't expect you here. Like, how are you feeling? Because everybody of course knows how much she had to drink last night. And she's like, I'm good. She's like, and she right here thanks him for the client. And I wrote, okay, he does look surprised. But sorry, bro, you didn't try nearly hard enough to make an effort to tell her that it was not you. And before he can, Serkan's like, I need to talk to you, Efe, because knowing Serkan, he overheard that and didn't want to be revealed as the person who did it.
Right.
Because Efe would know immediately because Serkan's the only other person he's told.
Right.
And so, so he interrupts them and says he needs to talk to Efe. But part of me is like, dude, you still could have told her. So I wrote,
Efe could have told Serkan, give me just a second, and then addressed her and then actually answered and explained.
But here we go. I said, this feels very Darcy and Wickham here because one has all the goodness and the other has all the appearance of it.
Very much. I like that parallel.
So,
gosh,
anyways.
That's very Darcy.
Yep. Yeah, to just save a family member of hers and not want any credit for it and not want her to know about it.
And tell people, don't tell anybody about this. Dang.
Yep. Even when Edda is mad at him and won't marry him. I mean, she would marry him. This is a little bit different, but you know.
Right. No, we get it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways.
So we get Idon with her therapist, and the whole crux of it essentially is the therapist notices that Idon has talked about Edda more than she's talked about her husband or her son or anyone else.
Right.
So she really thinks that Edda is the key to unlocking the situation and helping Idon finally get over this. And she tells her, I think you need to get her back into your life, whatever that happens to look like. I think that this is going to be the most important thing for you as far as moving on and being able to get over this.
Now, I will say props to Idon for being like, isn't that a little selfish? Like, we basically are the reason her life is ruined, and I'm supposed to just like ask her to come help me just so I can like get over this. So I did like that they had Idon say that.
Yes.
You know, but you know, the therapist points out like, yeah, but she also knows like how important this is to you, and I think it'll be special for her that she's like the only person who can help you with this, and it'll be good for her too.
And I liked that the therapist pointed out that the things that Idon is really suffering over and feeling all of that massive guilt about are things that she has no control over.
Right.
Her son's things that are not her fault. And she never had any control over them. So this hopefully will help her move past those things.
Right. Yep. So, yeah, and I also like that she pointed out, like, listen, your husband is responsible for this thing. Your son is the one who broke up with Edda, not you. Like, you can have a separate relationship with her.
Yep.
Yeah. So she basically says, okay, I'll try. You know, I'll give her a call. So, Fa and Serkan have a tense talk, basically, where it's made clear that he's been looking into him and that he knows he has a secret partner that he now wants to meet because he's like, well, you're my partner, so I need to meet my partner's partner.
Right.
And Fa's basically like, well, they're private for a reason, so if they ever want to reveal themselves, then I'll let you know. Like, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah.
And basically it's kind of like left at that. And he's like, okay, great. And that's the meeting.
Yeah.
And then
we get this was kind of, I know it wasn't out of left field, but this whole scene, I was kind of like, what is this? I loved the fight, and I love the fact that obviously Edda can still make Serkan do whatever she wants. And maybe that was the whole point. But the whole thing, I don't know. What did you think about this whole scene with Edda working, and then Serkan makes the plan with where the trees are cut down, and she's super upset. Comes in, starts yelling at him.
Yes, because she's basically telling him, I don't care what they told you. They can't be transplanted. They will die. They're too old for this. And he's like, there's nothing you can do, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, if you saw the grounds, then you'd see why this needs to be done. And she's like, fine, take me there. And he's like, no, it's the middle of a work day. I have so much to do. I'm not taking you anywhere. And then, of course, the next scene is them driving up to this site, which, of course, makes me laugh because the first thing he even says when they get out of the car is, look what you made me do. And you know, I love it because she tells him that this is his job and he needs to figure it out and how to make it work. So now this felt like a little bit of a volume 1 callback because he's like, you're really crazy. And she's like, you haven't even seen my crazy yet. And I know they've said that to each other before.
So maybe that was the whole point. It just felt a little off to me.
Right.
But if
kind of like the dancing scene.
Yeah. But if we're continuing with the whole new beginnings theory and things kind of like going back to the beginning type of a situation, maybe that is the whole point because they definitely have said that to each other where he's like, you're really crazy.
Yep. And she's been able to convince him of other things, like with plans, like in earlier episodes, like, well, what if you did this and what if you did that? And it's like, oh, wait, you have some good ideas. And also I feel like, they weren't fully really talking about the tree, like, as well, because she's like, do you not care? Do you not give a damn? Like, there's always something you can do if you want to do it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. So
true.
I felt like that's mostly what it was. And, because she's like, you can always do something, you just don't want to.
Yeah.
So, and she also knows how to get to his pride because she's like, well, and if you're supposed to be this great architect and you can't figure out a workaround for one tree, then clearly your talent only goes so far. And then what do you know? We're back at the office and the plans are being revised to keep the tree. So she got to him. So, I think the point was exactly that. Like, she can still challenge him and push him and make him better. Make him want to be a better person. So that was more the point, I believe, than anything else.
That makes sense.
But yeah, again, it did feel a tiny bit out of left field. Because like she could have taken FA with her and they could have teamed up against him, like, and all of that. So yeah. Especially because he's the landscape architect. So he would probably even have more specific knowledge to this particular issue than Serkan would.
Right, exactly.
So anyhow, then Ayfer does call Eda and tries to make small talk, but
Aydan.
Yes, that's correct. Aydan. I don't know why I wrote Ayfer.
I'm always like, okay, which one is it? I know. Ayfer.
Yeah, which moon woman is this?
Yeah.
So, but Eda's kind of like, I don't have time for this. So then she
says maybe.
Well,
no, maybe I'll come.
She doesn't have time for small talk. So she's just kind of like, I'm busy. I'm working. So then she gets down to like the crux of why she's calling. Like, well, I just wanted you to know, like, I started therapy and I'm going to be, and then she softens. Eda's like, well, good. I'm happy for you. And what can I, like, okay, so what is it that you're calling me for? So she basically explains like that she wants to know if she'll come help her and they can talk. And she's like, okay, I'll think about it. And that's enough for Aydan. She's happy with that. That's all I can ask.
Right.
And then Efe and Ferit chat, right?
Yeah, because Efe is upset that Serkan looked into his background. And Efe knows that Serkan is trying to separate him from the holding, but he kind of just wants him to move on. But it's like, dude, you say that you're patient and you get what you want, but Serkan is going to do the same exact thing.
Yep.
So Ferit kind of tells Efe to be careful, but Efe's like, Ferit, this isn't the first ugly act of Serkan against me, and you know it. So he is just kind of determined to not let Serkan push him out. He's determined to fight back if he needs to. So things are really starting to turn ugly, I think. But I think this is the beginning of things not being even not courtesy. Like they've kind of had courtesy for each other, but even so, not really. Like Serkan, Efe has been pretty patient with Serkan up until now, and I feel like Efe is reaching the end of his rope with how much he's gonna put up with from Serkan.
Well, and it still also points to the fact that there's an ulterior motive here that we don't know about, because why are you pushing so hard for this? You could strike off on your own in Turkey and be just fine. Your name speaks for itself. Your money and capital speaks for itself. So I think this is just further confirmation, like there's somebody else pulling these puppet strings, or you wouldn't be so adamant about this.
Right, because again, why this holding? And also, why does he have to work with Eda when she doesn't even have her degree and she isn't even all that experienced when it really comes down to it?
Yet he's paying her the salary of someone who is.
Yep, and he's fixated. He's fixated on her, and he doesn't like that Serkan is looking into his background. Yep. So there's obviously more going on.
Yeah. Yep. So after the Ceren and Eda chat that we already talked about, Eda decides to leave and winds up at the Bolat property.
Yeah.
And Idon is shocked to see her because last she had just talked to her a little bit ago. It was like she was just going to think about it. So
right.
she, of course, is like, welcome, thank you for coming. And when they sit down, she points out, just like she did to Serkan, that she's still wearing her ring as well.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I just took your advice and, it's reminding me of what your son did to me. And she's like, well, maybe one day your anger will lessen and you'll be able to take it off. And she's like, not likely.
Yeah, she's like, I don't think so.
So then Idon basically explains to her therapy, that she's wanting to try again, that she has wanted to try again for a while, that she even tried with Serkan.
Right.
But
it didn't work.
Couldn't make it out the gates.
Now, I loved that Eda offers to do this for her even before Idon asks.
Yeah.
She didn't even have to ask. Eda's like, because you can tell she's trying to work up the
courage,
the strength, yes, to actually ask her. And it's not easy for her to ask. And Eda just says, would you like to try again with me?
Yeah.
So
and I love that she
really
says,
sweet.
This time with your eyes open. Like, I love that. So,
yeah.
She's like, okay, then I'll come back tomorrow. She says, but on one condition. I'm going to basically tell your son everything I think of him, and you're not going to give me any grief over it. And before Idon can even agree or disagree, she's like, okay, cool. See you tomorrow. And then she turns around and is like, remember, you promised. Like, so.
And Idon's like, oh, yeah, promise. Okay, cool. But then she's just really excited, which I thought was sweet.
Yes.
So, poor Eda, she goes to her car and Serkan has just driven up. And so they have an encounter. And he's like, Eda, what are you doing here? And she's like, why aren't you at work? Which I love. She's like, come on. That's probably why she went when she did. Right. Because she was thinking, well, at least Serkan won't be there and I can go and talk to Eda or Idon by myself.
Yep.
So she's like, why aren't you at work? He's like, I left early. What are you doing here? And she's like, your mom invited me. And what he says next? Because he asks if she offended her. I know. And it does, like, not as much as her son. So they just kind of say, they don't even say goodbye. She just walks away. And then he walks in. But she realizes that she left her keys on the table back where she was sitting with Idon. And poor thing, she's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. You can see the defeat on her face that she has to go back. But
I know, after a mic drop moment like that, and now she has to turn around and be like,
seriously.
Hi, I'm back. I need my keys.
Oops, forgot my keys. But she walks up as Serkan walks up to his mom, and he is not happy that she has been talking to Eda.
Well, and he doesn't even give her a chance to explain why she called Eda.
No, he doesn't.
Because he would be like, okay, I'll just make sure I'm not here so that I don't hurt her and offend her. Like, he'd be all for his mom doing that. But he basically just like, I don't care. You shouldn't be talking to her. Like,
yep. And she's like, well, maybe if she knew the reason behind your breakup, everything wouldn't be this tense. And he's like, it doesn't matter because we already broke up. So please don't make things even more complicated. And we see that Eda has heard this, and that's how the episode ends. So
I love that she, at least because she finally gave up on the whole, there must be a reason. So I love that she was given confirmation that there was.
Yes.
So let's talk about the fragments. The first one is all hilarious, funny, pregnancy. Everyone's going crazy thinking there must be a baby coming. Yeah. And even Serkan, because like Engin's like, I'm going to be an uncle, and like pinches his cheeks and all this stuff. Like, it's really funny. But the second fragment that came out yesterday is much more emotional, much more serious. And it's basically, I think, Eda realizing there's a reason. And so she's purposely, this is what I think based on the fragment, that she's purposely putting herself in his path, that they have to work together, all this stuff, like, even outside work hours, because I think she's trying to weaken his resolve to prove, like, you have feelings for me and you love me still, because she overheard that there was a quote reason. And so because, he makes a comment at one point, like, Eda, like, we keep having to spend all this time together. Don't you think it's just going to start a cycle of repetition? And she's like, okay. And he's like, aren't you afraid of that? And she's like, are you? Like, so, you know, my theory is that she is purposely putting them in situations together more, because I think now that she knows there's a reason, even if she doesn't know what it is yet, that she's going to just prove that, like, he's affected by her, that it's not just like someone he was able to just throw out of his life because of work, supposedly.
Right.
So, but it's being done in a much more like emotional and dramatic sense, at least on the fragment. And it's episode 17 and our girl's putting on a blue dress. And I was like, okay, something with Ayşe and these episode 17 blue dresses. Obviously different situations, because John didn't buy Sanem that blue dress, even though Sanem was operating under the assumption that John did buy it for her.
Can I please request a very unsimilar ending?
Yes, you may.
Please.
Because here's what I'm thinking. It's already different because it's a dress that Serkan bought her. Versus a dress that she's assuming Serkan sent and bought her. Right. So already the dress isn't from FA, so we're on a different path there.
I'm too traumatized from that episode. I can't. And it cannot. Oh my gosh.
Listen, part of me thinks too that because episode 17 was Aisha's last one because of all the uproar people were having over her writing, which whatever, we won't get into that, but I sort of think that she's not going to make it end that same way, because like this is a hallmark episode for her, because she's going to make it past episode 17 and she did not with EK. So I think in that sense it's already going to end differently. And because so here's what I think. Or I should say I hope, that Idon or Alptekin, but hopefully Alptekin, because this is his freaking responsibility, tells her, finally, because maybe he sees that she's prodding around, maybe he sees whatever, and he finally breaks and confesses to her. Yeah. And I think that, yes, it's a shock and she's going to need to process this, but I think it makes everything click into place for her. And she goes to the office, because I'm pretty sure this is the final scene of the episode. It's also the final scene of this fragment. She walks up to Serkan, who's very emotional, and if you look closely enough, has a tear running down the side of his face when she holds his face and says, Serkan, there's something. And like, there's something, isn't there? So I think that at this point she knows, but she's giving him a chance to tell her so that then she can say, this isn't your fault. Yes, this is something that's big and huge and something I'm not easily going to get over when it comes to your dad. But this isn't your fault, and this isn't how it had to go. And you didn't have to take all of this on yourself.
I'm fully on board with that.
Now, the more likely scenario is she's just been hunting like a dog this entire episode and is finally at her wit's end and is just opening her soul up to him and begging him to tell her whatever it is, because she knows that there's something. That's probably the more likely route. And if that's the case, that's fine too. Just please let him spit it out this episode and don't end it on her just asking. Let him say, yes, there is. And then
end the episode.
And then he can even say something like, you know, it's my fault your parents are gone, or, you know, it's my, you know, I know, like, my family's responsible for your parents' death. And then that even ends there as a shock. Like, it doesn't even have to be fully explained this episode.
Yeah. Or she says there's something and he explains, and then she kisses him, and then that's the end of the episode.
Yes, which I'd be down for.
That's what I'm going to wish for.
Yes.
Is that it ends with a kiss.
Yes.
Instead of somebody running out of their own birthday party and having the worst encounter.
Oh, I know.
Sorry. Anyway,
this is
a new show.
Please do not. Yeah. Please. But also, I'm very curious what would have happened in episode 18 had Ayşe continued to write it. Like, what would have been the next thing to
I
happen.
know.
So anyways, at least this time we'll find out. If this
Yes.
episode 17 doesn't have the best ending, at least we know we're going to know what her plan is in episode 18. So, yeah, those are all my theories. I will throw out there too, people were saying, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, Sirius is finally back. Because he's been missing the last few episodes. And of course, there's all this lore and mythology associated with the appearance and disappearance of Sirius.
Oh, interesting.
Having to do with a goddess being pregnant when he's absent. So, of course, then that fed the theories of people saying Edda's pregnant because they're like, well, Sirius has been gone and now he's reappeared. And but honestly, I think those are all just false flags. But I just wanted to throw those out there because they were very good. So, anyhow, yeah, look at us still talking way longer than in the actual episode itself is. I swear we don't even do this on purpose. We don't. This is just what happens. But anyhow, so yeah, that's all of our thoughts and feels and hopes and dreams in regards to volume 16 and what's waiting for us in 17. So I really hope that I'll be able to do the live watch with you guys this week because this really is not an episode that I want to miss live. Like, I'm super, super excited for it. But we now have family coming into town, so I don't know how that's going to work out. So I may or may not be around virtually online with you guys on Wednesday, but hopefully I am. If not, I'm still very excited for whenever I, do get to watch it and break down all the craziness that I'm sure we're going to see happen. So just quick reminders, you can find all of our social medias and websites in the episode notes. And I know we talked a little bit last week about our partnership with North America 10. We will have where you can find them also in the episode notes, their website, which will then lead you to all their different social medias because they've got little spring off groups. Like if there's an actor in particular that you like super duper love, they have individual ones for like Ebo and Kavanch and how do you say his name? The guy from
Is it Chatare?
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Well, and the order of the letters always escapes me, but yes, I know from Protector, right?
Yes, from the Protector.
Yes.
So, so check all that out. All those resources we have dropped below for you guys, and I think other than that, we are good, and we'll be back next week, of course, breaking down exactly how wrong we were based on our fragman predictions for the next episode. So until next time,
Görüşürüz.
Hoşça kal.